and welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie, and today we have some fun picks for you. We have books that take place in Paris in honor of the 2024 Summer Olympics, which are coming next week. So, Jill, what's your first pick?
So my first one is Paris is Always a Good Idea.
Aww.
Great way to start off.
Love the title.
By Jen McKinley. This was published in 2020. It's been 7 years since Chelsea Martin embarked on a year-long post-college European adventure. Since then, she's lost her mother to cancer and watched her sister marry twice, while Chelsea's thrown herself into work, becoming one of the most talented fundraisers in the American Cancer Coalition. And with the exception of one annoyingly competent coworker, Jason Knightley, her status as most talented fundraiser is unquestioned. When her introverted mathematician father announces he's getting remarried, Chelsea is forced to acknowledge that her life stopped after her mother died, and that the last time she can remember being happy, in love, or enjoying her life was her gap year. Inspired to retrace her steps to find Colin in Ireland, Jean-Claude in France, and Marcelino in Italy, Chelsea hopes that one of these three men who stole her heart so many years ago can help her find it again. From the start of her journey, nothing goes as planned, but as Chelsea reconnects with her old self, she also finds love in the very last place she expected. Oh, come on. It's got to be Paris, right? Paris is always a good idea.
My first pick has a simple title. It's the Paris novel by Ruth Reichel. This was published this year. Stella reached for an oyster, tipped her head, and tossed it back. It was cool and slippery, the flavor so briny it was like diving into the ocean. Oysters, she thought, where have they been all my life? When her estranged mother dies, Stella is left with an unusual one-way plane ticket and a note that reads, "Go to Paris." But Stella's hardly cut out for adventure. A childhood trauma has kept her confined to the strict routines of her comfort zone. When her boss encourages her to take time off, Stella resigns herself to honoring her mom's last wishes. She's alone in a foreign city, and she falls into old habits, living cautiously and frugally. Then she stumbles across a vintage store where she tries on a fabulous Dior dress. The shopkeeper insists that this dress was meant for Stella, and for the first time in her life, she does something impulsive. She buys the dress, and together they embark on an adventure. She meets an octogenarian art collector who decides to take her under his wing. As Jules introduces her to a veritable who's who of 1980s Paris literary, art, and culinary worlds, Stella begins to understand what it might mean to live a larger life. As weeks and many decadent meals go by, just like those oysters, Stella ends up living as a tumbleweed at famed bookstore Shakespeare and Company. She uncovers a 100-year-old mystery in a Manet painting and discovers a passion for food that may be connected to her past. A feast for the senses, this novel is a testament to living deliciously, taking chances, and finding your true home.
Aww. So, food, I think, is important in Paris. So my next one is a memoir. This is from 2010, so it's a little bit older, but I thought it was worth including. Lunch in Paris, a love story with recipes. So there's recipes in this too, from Paris. By Elizabeth Bard. In Paris for a weekend visit, Elizabeth Bard sat down to lunch with a handsome Frenchman and never went home again. Was it love at first sight, or was it the way her knife slid effortlessly through her pave de poivre, the steak's pink juices puddling in the buttery pepper sauce? Lunch in Paris is a memoir about a young American woman caught up in two passionate love affairs, one with her new beau, Gwendol, and the other with French cuisine. Packing her bags for a new life in the world's most romantic city, Elizabeth is plunged into a world of bustling open-air markets, hipster bistros, and size 2 femme fatales. She learns to gut her first fish with a little help from Jane Austen, soothe pangs of homesickness with the rise of chocolate souffle, and develops a crush on her local butcher, who bears a striking resemblance to Matt Dillon. Elizabeth finds the deeper she immerses herself in the world of French cuisine, the more Paris itself begins to translate. French culture, she discovers, is not unlike a well-ripened cheese. There may be a crusty exterior until you cut through the melting piquant heart. Peppered with mouth-watering recipes for summer ratatouille, swordfish tartare, and molten chocolate cakes, Lunch in Paris is a story of falling in love, redefining success, and discovering what it truly means to be at home. It is a delicious tradition of memoirs like A Year in Provence and Under the Tuscan Sun. This book is a perfect treat for anyone who has dreamed that lunch in Paris could change their life. Lunch in Paris, here you go, in book form.
With recipes. Making me hungry, Jill. Second pick is actually part of a series. It's the second book in the Billy Walker mystery series, which begins with the book The War Widow The one I picked today is The Ghosts of Paris by Tara Moss. This was published in 2022. It's a thrilling tale of courage and secrets set in post-war London and Paris, in which a search for a missing husband puts investigator and former war reporter Billy Walker on a collision course with an underground network of Nazi criminals. It's 1947. The world continues to grapple with the fallout of the Second World War, and former war reporter Billy Walker is just finding her feet as an investigator when a wealthy client hires Billy and her assistant Sam to track down her missing husband. The trail leads Billy back to London and Paris, where her own painful memories also lurk. Jack Rake, Billy's wartime lover and briefly husband, is just one of the millions of people who went missing in Europe during the war. What was his fate after they left Paris together? As Billy's search for her client's husband takes her to both the swanky bars at Paris's famous Ritz Hotel and to the dank basements of the infamous Paris morgue, she'll need to keep her gun at the ready because something even more terrible than a few painful memories might be following her around the City of Lights. So if you're looking for a series, the Billy Walker Mystery Series.
My next one is part of a series, and this is number 21 in the Amy LeDuc investigations, Murder at La Villette. This is off our new bookshelf. It was published in 2024, this year in March. Parisian private investigator Amy LeDuc has been framed for murder of her daughter's father. Now she's on the lam and must find the real killer to clear her name in this thrilling 21st installment of Cara Black's New York Times best-selling mystery series. Parisian private investigator Amy LeDuc doesn't know that her life is about to be upended. Her ex, Malak, has been hounding her to move their daughter, Chloe, to Brittany. Amy is fed up with his threats to take her to court and has stopped answering his calls, which is why she doesn't know he's waiting for her by the Bassin de la Villette as she leaves the client's office late one night. When she finds him there bleeding in the canal, he has just been stabbed by an assailant who knocks Amy unconscious and plants the bloody knife in her hands. Now Amy is in police custody, debilitated by a concussion with overwhelming evidence pointing to her as Malak's killer. She must figure out who killed Malak. Not an easy job, given the target on his back as a former homicide investigator. Cut off from her typical network and forced to operate under multiple layers of cover, Amy must go deep into the underbelly of Paris' 19th arrondissement, where she rubs shoulders with biker gangs, paranoid journalists, grieving parents, and frustrating tight-lipped ex-cops in her hunt for justice. Murder at La Villette.
I also have a cooking book, popular theme in Paris. This is Dinner for One, How Cooking in Paris Saved Me by Sutania Dackers, if I'm pronouncing her last name right. This was published in 2022. It's an unforgettable memoir of how the author rebuilt her life after her American in Paris fairy tale shattered, starting with cooking dinner for herself. When Sutania married her French boyfriend and moved to Paris at 27, she felt like she was living out her very own Nora Ephron romantic comedy. She was Jamaican-born and Bronx-raised, and she had never dreamed she herself could be one of those American women in Paris she admired from afar via their blogs, until she met the man of her dreams one night in Manhattan. But this wasn't a happily ever after. Her marriage abruptly ended, and the fairy tale came crashing down around her. Reeling from her sudden divorce and the cracked facade of that picture-perfect expat life, she grew determined to mend her broken heart and learn to love herself again. She began by cooking dinner for one in her kitchen. Along the way, she builds Parisian friendships, learns how to date in French, and examines what it means to be a Black American woman in Paris, all while adapting the French principles of pleasure, especially when it comes to good food, and exploring what the concept of self-care really means. This book was described as brimming with charm, humor, and hard-won wisdom. The story takes you on an adventure through love, loss, and finding where you truly belong, even when it doesn't look quite how you expected. So, Dinner for One, How Cooking in Paris Saved Me.
You know, I think the one thing we're learning in this is that if you go to Paris, the food is really important. And it could save your life. Change it. Make you write a book. Rhys Bowen, The Paris Assignment. This is also off our new shelf. This was published at the end of 2023. Londoner Madeleine Grant is studying at the Sorbonne in Paris when she marries charismatic French journalist Giles Martin. As they raise their son Olivier, they hold on to a tenuous promise for the future until the thunder of war sets off alarms in France. Staying behind to join the resistance, Giles sends Madeline and Olivia to relative safety of England, where Madeline secures a job teaching French at a secondary school. Yet nowhere is safe. After a devastating twist of fate resulting in the loss of her son, Madeline accepts a request from the ministry to aid in the war effort. Seizing the smallest glimmer of hope of finding Giles alive, she returns to France. If Madeline can stop just one Nazi, it will be the start of a valiant path of revenge. Through her perseverance, defiance, and heart will be tested beyond imagining. No risk is too great for the brave wife and mother, determined to fight and survive against inconceivable odds. So, The Paris Assignment by Reese Bowen.
Popular author here at our library. My fourth pick is a book called The Paris Notebook by Tessa Harris, published in 2023. Love the cover of this one with the Eiffel Tower, the bookshop, the planes flying over. Takes place in January 1939. When Katja Heinz secures a job as a typist in Dr. Victor's clinic, she doesn't expect to be copying top-secret medical records from a notebook. At the end of the First World War, Dr. Victor treated soldiers for psychological disorders, and one of those patients was none other than Adolf Hitler. The notes in his possession declare Hitler unfit for office, a secret that could destroy the Führer's reputation and change the course of the war if exposed. With the notebook hidden in her hat box, Katja and Dr. Victor travel to Paris. Seeking refuge in the Shakespeare and Company bookshop, pictured on the cover, they hope to find a publisher brave enough to print the controversial script. But she is being watched. Of course she would be. Nazi spies in Paris have discovered her plan. They'll stop at nothing to destroy the notebook and silence those who know of the secret hidden inside. This book was described as having twists and turns and a mixture of mystery and suspense, but also romance thrown in. So, The Paris Notebook by Tessa Harris.
She'll find some love while she's running from the Nazis.
Actually, this one may go on my to-be-read list.
This is for you nonfiction lovers out there who want to learn more about Paris. How Paris Became Paris, The Invention of a Modern City by Joan de Jean. This was published in 2014. At the beginning of the 17th century, Paris was known for isolated monuments but had yet to put its brand on urban space. Like other European cities, it was emerging from its medieval past. But in a mere century, Paris would be transformed into the modern and mythic city we know today. Though most of the people associate the signature characteristics of Paris with the public works of the 19th century, Joan de Jean demonstrates that the Parisian model for urban space was in fact invented 2 centuries earlier when the first complete design for the French capital was drawn up and implemented. As a result, Paris saw many changes. It became the first city to tear down its fortifications, inviting people in rather than keeping them out. Parisian urban planning showcased new kinds of streets, including the original boulevard, as well as public parks and the earliest sidewalks and bridges without houses. Venues opened for urban entertainment of all kinds, from opera and ballet to pastime invented in Paris. Recreational shopping, Parisians enjoyed the earliest public transportation and street lighting, and Paris became Europe's first great walking city. A century of planned development made Paris both beautiful and exciting. It gave people reasons to be out in public as never before and nowhere else, and it gave Paris modern identity as a place where people dreamed of seeing. By 1700, Paris had become the capital that would revolutionize our conception of city and modern life. So, like, if you want to know a little history of Paris, there it is.
Sure, there'll be lots of beautiful shots during the Olympics that we'll get to see. So, you've been.
I've been.
I have not.
I would like to go again. And I'll eat more food.
My last pick is also part of a series. This is Chris Lloyd's, and this is Paris Requiem. This was published in 2023. It's a gripping World War II murder mystery and a beautifully drawn portrait of Paris under Nazi occupation. It's Paris 1940 in this one, and as the city adjusts to life under Nazi occupation, Detective Eddie Gerald struggles to reconcile his job as a policeman with his new role enforcing a regime he can't believe in but must work under. He's sacrificed so much in order to survive in this new world, but the past is not so easily forgotten. When an old friend and an old flame reappear begging for his help, Eddie must decide how far he will go to help those he loves. The notion of justice itself quickly becomes as dangerous, blurred, and confused as the war itself, and Eddie's moral compass, ever on unreliable foundations, will be questioned again and again as the ravages of the German occupation steadily attempt to grind him and the city he loves into submission. Negotiating a path between resistance and collaboration, he can remain a good man and do nothing, or risk everything he has achieved in a desperate act of resistance. So it's also part of a series, so it's the second book in the series, and that series begins with The Unwanted Dead. Again, Tower in the
more Eiffel Tower. I hope we see a lot of that next week. Well, I hope if you're getting prepared to watch the Olympics in Paris or any other reason you want to read about Paris, I hope we found some books for you to start with.
We thank you for watching our videos. Find us on our YouTube channel, the Kimberly Public Library website, Kimberly Public Library's Facebook page, so you can find us various places. We always like to hear what you're reading this summer. We haven't had a lot of comments on the videos about what people are reading, so love to hear from you. Tell us what you're reading. And until next time, we thank you for watching. Bye!